My talk for today is called Day One, Again and Again and Again. So I've got some quotes for you. It's never too late to be who you might have been. This is by a woman named George Eliot, whose real name was Marianne Evans and was one of the leading writers of the Victorian era. Another quote, people are capable at any time in their lives of doing what they have dreamed. And that is Paulo Coelho. And a West African proverb, it is not wrong to go back to that which you have forgotten. And then we have J.P. Morgan. The first step towards getting somewhere is to decide you're not going to stay where you are. I like that. And then lastly, of course, we have Dr. Holmes, who says, let us be happy to begin right where we are and grow. Let us be happy to begin right where we are and grow. And so wherever we are, let us be happy. That is the first step in growing, is being happy where we are. And to know that we can begin again no matter what has gone on previously. So Edwin Gaines started this thing called 28 Days Without Complaining, because she knows that it takes 28 days to create a new habit. And so the idea is you go 28 days in a row without complaining. And if you complain, you got to start all over again. And so I decided that when my son turned 13, it was time for him to go through a rite of passage, because he was talking about how he was going to be driving in a couple of years. And my stance has always been, kids don't drive, adults drive. And so a rite of passage into adulthood was important. And I had done a lot of studying about rites of passage and had realized that what they are about is doing something beyond what you think you're capable of and succeeding. And so I knew my son could succeed at this, and yet he didn't think he was capable of it. And so for his rite of passage, I picked 28 days without complaining. And he went, for the first time, I think he went 5 days, had to start over. And that wasn't such a big deal to him because it had just been 5 days anyway. The second time he went 17 days and then had to start over. Still, that didn't seem to bother him very much. And I think about that, how sometimes when we have to start over and it's only been a few days, that's not a big deal. You go a little bit longer doing something and then hit a roadblock, an obstacle, where it feels like you have to start over. It gets a little tougher. He went on like this for a while, 5 days, 10 days, never really getting much past it until all of a sudden, about 6 months later, he had gone 25 days and then complained. Now, I have to tell you, he wasn't the only one devastated by that. We all were. We all thought, oh my God, he was so close, so close. Have you ever felt that way? Like you were just so close, and yet then it was time to start again. It took him a while. It took him maybe 3 weeks of really complaining almost every day before he finally got back on the bandwagon. And this time made it the full 28 days. Now, he was 13. At the time, everybody at our center, our spiritual center, was working on doing the same thing, including me. I had not yet made it 28 days. In fact, it turned out that my 13-year-old son, out of the ministers and the 300 people who showed up on Sundays, was the first one to ever complete it in our center. And so the ministers brought him up on stage and made this huge deal about it. It was his full rite of passage, so he was able to take driver's ed and get his license. And my son is now driving since he's 16 years old and actually has never had a major accident of any sort. as is still in the same car he bought when he was 16 years old. And so there is something to a rite of passage, and that's for another talk. But if you have teenagers and you'd like to talk to me about that at some point, please feel free to contact me about rites of passage. Back to this talk, which has to do with begin again, day one again. And so it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something. You can begin again. Back to Dr. Holmes. Begin to use this principle, no matter how slight you feel your knowledge, and the result will inspire you to perceive new ways and methods of approach until you gradually grow into a deeper assurance. So it's all about beginning, starting again. The day begins, the sun comes up, it goes around, it comes up, it goes around, it comes up again. And so we get to play that way in our lives. We don't have to be held by the baggage that we tend to carry along with us about what we have not accomplished in the past. Now, I have had trouble with that myself, getting caught in the world of, what I have not been able to accomplish in the past, and somehow holding that as applying to what is possible for me now. And so then I have to remember not to do that. And it takes remembering not to do that. It takes taking a hold of myself when my mind starts going to, oh, look at all the times I've failed at this. What makes me think I can do it now? And go, hold it. This is a brand new dawn. This is a brand new day. I start anew. But it's up to me, which means it's up to you to get a hold of yourself when those things happen, to not rely on what has occurred in the past, to say what will happen in your future. Day one, again. You get to have that. So I'm playing this new game now called 100% responsibility for everything in my life. No matter who's doing what to me or them or whatever, what I am doing now is playing the game. And I call it a game for a reason, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Playing the game of no matter what happens, I'm taking 100% responsibility for it. And so what I know, and this came from an idea from Gay and Katie Hendricks in terms of what they talked about, what makes a relationship work. So I didn't think of this myself. It didn't come out of thin air. It came out of the work that they have been doing for 30 years on how to create a successful relationship. And Ash and I have dived deeply into this work and done a wonderful job of moving our relationship forward through using the different techniques that they have talked about. And this is one that I have chosen to take on fully. And in doing so, have had to perceive everything that is happening in my life a little differently. Now, I speak all the time about how we are the creator of our experience. And yet, I don't know that I have been willing or able to take on to the full extent when Ash does something that hurts my feelings, or Isaac, my son, does something that hurts my feelings. I don't know that I have been able to or willing to say, that's my responsibility until now. And what I notice is by saying that it's a game I'm playing, it keeps it lighter. That if I were to say, this is just what's so that I'm 100% responsibility, then I could easily run into that thing of, no, it was done to me. I didn't do that. But by saying that it's a game I'm playing, I'm putting it into a realm where, okay, this is what I'm doing now. I'm playing this game called I'm 100% responsible, keeps it lighter and keeps it as something that I am able to do. And why am I bringing this up? Because I notice that I am not very good at this game. I notice that it's taking me a lot of practice to get good at this game I want to play called taking 100% responsibility. So that's how come I'm doing this talk, is to remind myself day one again. But actually, I'm breaking it down to hour one again. I'm calling the talk day one again, but I got to tell you that for me, I'm actually breaking it down to hour one again, because I haven't gone through a single day yet of having pulled this off, but this is the way I want to play. So if you have a way you want to be in the world, if you have a way you want to play in the world, whatever that is for you, be willing to break it down to start again if you didn't do it the way you wanted to do it, if you weren't being who you wanted to be. I was telling Ash this morning how one of the things I'm working with is how, okay, I have this idea of how I want to be. Then I'm not being that way. Well, then I'm judging not being that way. So the next thing I have to be is not judgmental for not being that way. And then the next thing I have to be is not judgmental about being judgmental. And then I start over. And then it repeats itself. So there's all these different layers, right, that we can work with and finally go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened even 5 minutes ago. Here I am now. It doesn't matter. This is who I want to be now. If part of who I want to be is making amends for what I did 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, that's great, as long as it still fits into who I want to be now. So this is a really important concept, day one now, hour one and now, however you want to hold it, because it allows you to begin fresh. And if you think you can't begin fresh, then that's a belief that I highly recommend letting go of. And having a fresh outlook allows us to break the bonds of apparent necessity. And this is from Dr. Holmes as well. Breaking the bonds of apparent necessity and see life as one continuous expression of the infinite self. And as this conception gradually dawns upon the inner thought, something will happen in the outer conditions to relieve the greater demands of necessity. And what he means by that is, as long as we can stay fresh in our resolve, fresh in the moment of who it is we want to be in the world, constantly reinforcing that and letting go what has happened since, something in the outer conditions will shift. It has to, because we will ultimately be convinced of its own idea, completely accept it, and then there is no contradiction is possible. So live in the moment as much as possible, refreshing, keeping fresh that high resolve that is yours. And in that, bring forth the being you want to be and the life you want to live. Thank you. I love you.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.